Hello, and good Thursday. We are here today for another Facebook Live, and we have Vicki. Is it Vicki Vollweiler?
Vollweiler.
Vollweiler. Thank you. I meant to ask that when we weren't on air, but that's okay. And we are going to be talking about saving money on college. And I like the sentence you just said before we got on here, and you said you help people save money.
I don't help people save for college. I help people save on the cost of college.
Exactly. So, what she said.
Well, and like we were saying, college is so expensive these days. And we know, right, Maggie? I mean, getting you through college, your brother through college. And I just felt like it was a rat's nest of papers and people you needed to talk to. And I always thought, well, I should be doing more. What am I losing out on? What do we need to apply for? Do you talk to the counselors at school, or do you talk to the ones at the college? I mean, there's just so much to navigate. So I think having an expert like you to kind of blaze the trail and say, do this, do that, do this, do that, or what's most beneficial can save not only money, but a lot of time and aggravation and, just frustration on the process. So I think what you do is so unique. I don't know anybody else who does it. And I'm so glad that you're purse strings approved and you're part of our community, because we're all things financial. And one of the biggest expenses, when people have children, the first thing they do is open a college fund sometimes just to get started then. So it's a lifelong dream for many to get their children through college. Although I would say college is not for everyone. That's my 2 cents. But for those who really want to go, there are ways that you can manage it. And there's ways to make good, healthy financial decisions. So glad you're here today. I'll just introduce Purse Strings Mag first. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, thanks. So Maggie and I run Purse Strings. I'm the founder. She's my partner and also my daughter. And she's all things operational, technical. She waves her magic wand and makes things happen in the background. So glad she's here. It's part of our team. But Purse Strings, our mission is really to provide women free online tools and resources so they can make smart financial decisions for themselves and for their families. But besides just providing free resources in terms of what's on our website and these great Facebook Live opportunities that we have in our group and several other groups, we also have professionals like Vicki, who we call our Purse Strings approved professionals. And we search high and low for those professionals who really can add value to our community by providing expert knowledge, expertise, and true engagement for women. So these are professionals who are really going to be part of your financial team. They're going to see what your needs are. They're going to look you in the eye. They're going to have conversations. They're going to make sure you're making the best financial decision based on your scenario. They're never going to try to sell you a product or service. And that's why we call them our Purse Strings approved professionals. And we have all things professionals on our site. We have realtors, lenders, bakers, money coaches, financial advisors, attorneys. So anyone who would help you make a financial decision along your life journey. So we're pleased to have Vicki here today, and I will let Maggie introduce her.
Yeah, so Vicki is the founder of College Financial Prep, which works with clients nationally to help parents maximize savings, minimize college costs, and reduce the need for student loan debt for both parents and children. If you're unsure how to proceed, don't potentially lose thousands and thousands of dollars. College Financial Prep was created to guide parents through the maze of college financial aid, scholarship, and student loans. She works with parents of both high school and current college students. And so with that, we will give you the floor, Vicki.
Oh, thank you.
Take it away.
Just so you know, sorry, the screen keeps changing. So just so you know a little bit about me, Maggie, can you change it, please? We're going to be discussing how to save money on the cost of college. So a little background on me and college financial prep. I'm a divorced mom. I wanted to make sure as my children were getting older that they were going to be in the best position possible for college. Maggie, can you scroll to the next screen, please? Thank you. So anyway, I got divorced. I decided to become a divorce coach. I was helping families focus on their personal finances. And in doing so, parents started to ask me, well, now my kids are getting older and they're going to be going to college. What do I do? How do I save money on the cost of college? And at the same time, my own kids are getting older and I'm thinking about the same thing for them. So we all want what's best for our children, and that includes college. But at the same time, we all need to focus on our own bank accounts and make sure that we're in the best position possible. So it's putting those two together to make sure we're taking care of our children, taking care of ourselves as we move forward. And that's basically how College Financial Prep was born, to help families, to help single parents, all different types of situations happen. In the main, my clients are mostly divorced, widowed, extenuating circumstances, because life happens. It's just part of it. And the goal is to help you save as much money as possible on the cost of college and keep those student loans to a minimum. Maggie? So first, why is this topic so important? I want everybody to be aware of the student loan debt statistics and why I focus so heavily on this. So the first thing, nationally, there's about $1.57 trillion in student loan debt. I mean, that's just, astounding to me. Next, Maggie. Right now, about 54% of all college students are taking on debt, for student loans to help pay for their education. My goal, personal goal is to help reduce that as much as possible. And next, Maggie. And right now, the average amount of student loan debt is $37,584. But don't forget, some people pay nothing. And some people, literally have hundreds of thousands of dollars of student loan debt. And we'll get into that a little later on as to, when it may be wiser to take on that student loan debt and, maybe other times not so much. So let's talk about this student loan debt for a minute. What's the impact for both the student and for the parents? Sometimes it is the parent that may be going back to school, but let's talk in general, if the student is the child. So students can only take up to a certain amount of student loans through the government. It's $5,500 freshman year, $6,500 sophomore year, and then $7,500 each for junior and senior years. That said, they have this bulk of student loan debt potentially when they graduate. And what happens then? It may impact the student in that they have to postpone getting on with their life. They may not be able to afford getting married so quickly. They may not be able to afford purchasing a home so quickly. They may not be able to afford, starting that family as quickly as they would like because of the monthly loan payments, depending on what they're paying. For the parent, since the child is only allowed to take out a certain amount, depending on the cost of the school that the student attends, the parent, if they take out a Parent Plus loan through the government, is really on the hook for the balance. That can impact the parent's retirement, when they're able to retire because they have to pay off this monthly debt. So it could cause a lot of problems for the parents. Are they going to be able to keep working past a certain age to take care of that debt? There are other options in terms of student loans with private lenders, but when possible, it's advisable, especially like with everything happening with COVID. It's best to go with the federal loans. Anyway, let's move on. So how is it best to reduce the cost of college? I'm sure that's the big question that everybody's wondering. So in order to save money, College Financial Prep has put into place the goals system. So we generate a college list, and this typically starts high school junior year. And I'll come back and go into a little more depth on all of these. October 1st is when the financial aid forms open up. Then we analyze the financial aid awards. Then we'll look to get more free money, and then we'll secure the student loans. So what do I mean by generating a college list? So typically when the student is a junior in high school is when families start thinking about, okay, where's my child going to apply? What schools should we go visit? But it's important also to keep in mind finances. It's important to keep in mind what the student's interest is, what type of majors, what type of school, what geographic location. But it's also important to think about what is the household's current financial situation. How much are in your regular bank accounts? How much are in your retirement accounts? Do you own your home? Do you rent your home? All different things that play into your personal finances. And then it's also important to consider the child and their academic achievements in high school, because that could also play into saving money on the cost of college. Come October 1st senior year is when the financial aid forms open. Most people are familiar with the term FAFSA, which is free application for federal student aid, but that's just one form. Depending on the schools that the student applies to, you may also be filling out the CSS profile, which is through the College Board, which is the same that administers the SAT tests and the AP tests. Most people are familiar with the College Board. And also some of the schools themselves also have their own institutional financial aid forms. In addition to some states, not all states, also have a state financial aid form to complete. Very important to do that, to fill out those forms, even if the family doesn't think that they're going to qualify for any need-based aid, because many of the schools want the financial aid applications on file, even to award merit scholarship money. So it's important to not ignore that step. Next, once the student starts to receive their acceptances, then they also receive their financial aid awards. And it's important to analyze those and potentially see where the free money is coming from, where to get more free money from, just to make sure you're comparing apples to apples and looking at each offer. Then we're going to look for more free money. I'll give you a story later, but it is possible to get more free money later on in the game, either through negotiating with the schools, or maybe you've had a change in your financial situation. When we complete the financial aid forms, kids that are going to school, say fall 2021, we're using 2019 tax returns. So much, especially, with COVID, so much could have happened with a family during those 2 years, and their financial picture may be completely different. So based on those situations, it is possible to get more money being put towards school, free money. And then lastly, if the student needs, then we'll look for securing student loans and look for the lowest interest rates, and look for, what happens if the student maxes out their portion of what they're able to take. Maggie? So how do we find free money? So in the main, there are two types of free money. You have merit scholarships and you have need-based aid. So just so everyone knows, people often think about, the brand name scholarships, this one will offer you $20,000 or, $5,000 or whatever it is. And all you have to do is submit your name and all of a sudden, you're entered into the scholarship. Those are really more just, like contests, not really scholarships. The most merit money typically will come from the colleges themselves. Merit money is awarded for a variety of reasons. It's not just for academics. But, in terms of academics, you would want the student to be, say, in the top 25% of the applicants of that school. Maybe have the top, in the upper range of grades and the upper range of test scores. But there are other reasons beyond just academics. For instance, maybe you live on, the East or the West Coast, and your child is applying to school, in the Midwest. I'm just making this up. you may be geographically desirable. They may be looking to bring in students from your region because they don't have many, and many of the schools are looking for diversity. So you may be very attractive to that school, and therefore they may offer you scholarship money to entice you to attend. I mean, other reasons, say for athletic reasons, athletic scholarships they may offer, or suppose your child is a leading French horn player and they don't have enough French horn players in their school band. They may offer a scholarship. Or say a school has a brand new program that they're offering and your student wants to participate in that program. They may offer you a scholarship. So many different reasons. But just be aware that they're out there, and they're out there in the form of honors programs. Honors programs at various schools come with lots and lots of benefits, including merit money. Sometimes the honors programs will include things such as priority registration for classes, priority housing, access to faculty that the regular student body doesn't have, increased networking opportunities. But most importantly, it usually comes with lots of merit scholarship money. So, that's definitely one avenue to consider. Need-based aid is for those families who qualify for financial reasons. Lots of people ask me what the magic number is to qualify. And candidly, I can't give you that answer because the financial aid formulas also look at things such as the age of the parents. They'll look at the number of children in the household. It considers so many different variables that there is no one magic number. But you should know, in general, they do look at the parents' income, the parents' assets, the students' income, the students' assets. They want to know if you own a business. They do a deep dive into your finances. So FAFSA is the federal form. And as I mentioned earlier, there's also the CSS profile. The CSS profile is used by about 400 mostly private schools. There are a couple of public universities that use them, but in the main, it's private universities. And it provides a real holistic look at the family's finances. They will, on the CSS profile, they'll dig even deeper than FAFSA. They want to know the value of your home, the purchase price, the equity that you currently have in it. They also want to know more, or they want to know about your retirement accounts. Sometimes some of the schools may even ask, what type of cars you own. They want to know if you own your home, if you rent your home. Also both forms want to know about extra, if you have additional real estate investments. So they're digging deep into your finances. And for those who are divorced, the CSS profile, those schools, certain schools will say, yes, they want the non-custodial parents' financial information, and other schools will not. So when I'm working with either a divorced parent or, divorced family, where both parents are involved, we may strategically select certain schools to apply to over others, depending on, what financial information is willing to be shared, and which will better position the child, or the student rather, for increased financial aid. So depending on the household is how we move forward and strategize. Also, I mentioned earlier, some of the schools have their own specific financial aid forms that also need to be completed. So I want to tell you about a little story and how it relates to the cost of college. So New Year's Eve this past year, my heating system went kaput. I found a flood in my basement. My daughter just left for the weekend. It was awful. Anyway, I found some people that were willing to come New Year's Eve, New Year's Day to give me some estimates. And the first person that came to give me an estimate gave me one quote, fine. And then I got another quote and opted to go with the second company. Anyway, I figured I'd be nice, courteous. I called the first company back and I speak to the gentleman and tell him, thank you, sorry, going with the other. And the first thing he says to me, was it price? Can I give you a lower price? Now, honestly, it was beyond just pricing as to what my reasons were to go with the second company. But think about it. Like any product or service you buy can be negotiated. And that's also true with the cost of colleges. So keep that in mind. When they give you a financial award letter, it's possible. Not always, every school is different, but it is possible to negotiate the cost of college and to reduce that price. And even if it's a saving of $1,000, hey, that's $1,000 savings. So, just keep that story in mind.
Vicki, if you're going to go and, negotiate this cost of college, who would you call to do that? Or who has the ability to give you this new price?
If it's just negotiating, here, I'll give you an example. Right now, a lot of the schools, not the Harvards, but a lot of the schools, they have empty seats. Mm-hmm. They want to fill those seats, their businesses. So I'm working with a client now, and I've worked with her, beginning with generating a list all the way through, and her daughter's, getting ready to graduate high school now. And we asked for a better price, and hey, great, they came down $7,000 a year.
Wow.
So saving of $28,000 based on the letter and the information that I put together for her. Then she went back. I told her what to say. She went back. She called them up. They gave her another $3,000 a year because they want her daughter. They want to fill their seats. So wow. Is that guaranteed to happen at every single school? No, but it does happen. So, it's just great to keep in mind.
That is great to know. I'll let you keep going.
Okay. So, as I started to allude to before with divorce, with widowhood, with job loss, with medical expenses, any extra, extenuating circumstances, the key is to be strategic, to apply to the right colleges and universities. That's at the very, very beginning of the process. You don't want to wait till after the child has already sent out their applications to start thinking about, well, what are these costs really going to be for us? If you're divorced, you want to look for the colleges that, might not request the other parent's financial information. If both parents are earning very little, it may be okay to show that. Other instances, it may not be to your benefit. In other situations, and this could be for a married household also, if finances are limited, you'd certainly want to determine what your net cost for each college is going to be before submitting the applications. An example, here for me, for anybody, but here, my neighbors next door, they have a child the same age as my son. It's very possible that, had both students applied to the same college, each of our households may have had a lower net cost that we would each pay to the same school. The households could have difference in finances. The households could have, different types of students that were both accepted. Maybe one is more deserving of merit scholarships than the other based on their, prior academic performance. There are many, many reasons that, two different households can be offered, different prices for attendance. So, but it can be done. You can figure out what those, net costs are. And again, they're estimates. It's not exact, but you have a general idea of which schools are likely to, be in the $75,000 range, which schools are likely to be in the, $40,000+ range, and which schools will cost less. So it's important to know that information. People talk about finding, applying to, target schools and reach schools and safety schools. It's also important to have financial safety schools on the list as well. And as we mentioned with, receiving merit scholarship, think about their academic achievements, and match those up with the colleges that are likely to provide them with the awards. So one thing, it's funny, we're talking about saving money, but you can't think just about the saving money portion. We also need to think through the entire process, onto their career and whatnot. So let's look at two different examples. So the first example I'm going to give you, and I'm from New York State, so I'm just using New York in my example. Say there is a student who wants to become a teacher and teach in New York State. And there is nothing, I'm not saying anything bad about being a teacher, but say this child wants to be a teacher, because people always ask me that. Anyway, say one student wants to attend, whether it's an out-of-state university, whether it's a private university, whatever it is. And then there's another student who wants to be a teacher, and they attend a local in-state university. Now, ultimately, when both of these students graduate college and move on, they're both going to take the New York State teaching license exam. They're both going to be earning a similar amount working in the same school districts, but one student is going to be have paid, much higher amount to go to college, or they're going to be paying it off in student loans, whereas the other one will have had a much lower cost of college experience. Which is better off for, that student, which makes more sense. Is it possible there may be good reasons to spend the additional money? Yes, there may be. But, in the main, especially to become a teacher in New York State, it may make more sense financially to go to the in-state university. For example, 2, now let's consider a student who has a very, very specialized major. Maybe they want to be a medical researcher, maybe, whatever, that path is. For this student and their potential career path and what their potential earnings will be, it may make sense to pick a higher priced university if based on their job placement, if based on, their statistics, that, it will help the student better with their career path and with their earnings. So it may make sense to spend more on the cost of college and possibly incur those student loans to achieve their future goals. So in this case, sometimes spending more may be the right choice. So some success stories and some failures. Success stories. I just told you about one where, the family saved, $7,000 and then another $3,000. So $10,000 a year just for calling, for working with the admissions office at the school. Again, that doesn't happen to everybody. I'll give you a success story of they were separated at the time, a separated family I worked with. 3 students. One was, 2 were in college. One was a rising college senior. One was a rising college junior. And then there was a high school senior, getting ready to enter freshman year. And because of their change in their household, due to the separation, I was able to work with the family and the schools. And ultimately, they saved about $50,000 just for the 1 year of college. Yes, it was because of the 3 children, but still, that's a lot of money to save, even with one child. So there is a lot of money to be saved depending on the situation. It's important to make sure that all avenues are explored. Now, what are the failures that unfortunately I see time and time again? I will have people call me at the 11th hour. 11th and 59 minutes hour. They've already, here, true example. The kid was leaving for the college tomorrow. They wanted to know how they can save money. At that point, it's too late. You've already selected the school. You've already committed to the school. You've already, there's no way to, you already put down the deposit. There's no negotiating left. There has to be some, real strong extenuating circumstance to make a case to try to get more money late in the game. I can't stress how important it is to start early on if you're looking to save money. So just remember, there is no right or wrong college to choose. Every person, every family has different goals, different values in terms of colleges. It's important that everyone communicates with one another. Here, Maggie, can you change it? It's important that everybody communicates with each other to be on the same page as to, what the goal is when selecting colleges to apply to. In summary, it's always important to be mindful of college costs, the process of saving on the cost of college. It begins when you're initially considering college, all the way through to the end stage of, ideally minimizing the need for student loans. A lot of people feel that saving money is based just on the completion of the FAFSA form. So not true. That's just one small part of the process. It's a very, very important part of the process, but really it's important to think through all the different steps. And as we, discussed in our two examples, it's important to consider that, return on investment, what are the students' potential earnings going to be, their potential career path. And then also, as we just started to say, so important to communicate with your family members. I've seen too much resentment happen when parents tell the child, yeah, apply to, all the schools that you want to. And then they have to say at the very end, oh, I'm sorry, we can't afford it. And lastly, realize that no matter where the student attends, great opportunities can come from, their attendance at most any college. It's really up to the student, at the end of the day, to go and seek those opportunities and start creating their path forward. Just as a recap about college financial prep, we guide parents through college list, financial aid, scholarship, and student loan processes, where the goal is to maximize your savings, minimize costs, and reduce the need for student loans. Thanks, Maggie. And here's some information to contact us at College Financial Prep.
That was great,
Maggie,
Vicki. So much great information in there. And, you're right. I have a couple questions for you.
Sure.
So when just starting the process and applying to schools, do you have a number that you usually recommend of how many schools people should apply to? Because sometimes that also, I remember that costs money to send your application or your ACT scores and different things like that.
It does cost money. I mean, I'm being totally candid. My clients run the gamut. I have, some that are on Medicaid. I have some that have lots and lots of assets and just want to minimize their costs. So it is possible for the families that are in, more financially difficult positions to get fee waivers, for the schools and for the, delivering of the SAT, the test scores. Mm-hmm. And whatnot.
Yeah,
it's important to ask that. You can ask the high school guidance counselor office about that.
Do you recommend how many schools people should apply to?
It varies per family. No, I'm just concerned. What I've seen a lot of, especially lately, people that think that they're applying to, reach, target, and safety schools. Those targets are not guaranteed anymore. So people are surprised about that. My recommendation would be to make sure they include, a good few safety schools, at least, that they're truly interested in.
Right. And then is there any magic way, you're saying about how, you kind of want to see what you want to do for school and see if that's really worth the good investment for the school that you're going to. Is there a best way to kind of calculate that, or like you should earn X amount per year if you're going to spend this much on school?
I don't have a calculator like that, but I'm just saying that depending on what the major is, you may be able to accomplish the same thing, like in the teacher example, you may be able to accomplish the same exact thing at an in-state university. But if you literally want to become, the next person to, solve, COVID and, you may need a more specialized program that not every school can offer.
Right.
Right. So, really depends. And it's up to the family's goals.
And then when do people start working with you? Junior year, or do people start before that or after that?
I've had a couple of people that started sophomore year. Candidly, that's very early in my opinion. Junior year is perfect to start with, locating the schools and determining what those likely costs will be. And, for juniors, I work with the families in two ways. Either they'll come to me with a list of schools and we'll determine what the likely costs are, or I work with families and help them develop the list, and also taking finances into consideration. But in addition to that, life happens. So say a family has a child who's already in college and, whatever, something awful happens, somebody gets hit by a bus, there's a death, there's a divorce, there's, so many things can happen. But yeah, I help those families too to minimize their costs, due to the change in circumstance.
Yeah. And then do people pay you by like student going to school and you helping them, or do they pay you per hour, or?
It depends on what the needs of the family are. I mean, yeah, there's a per hour if it's a, consultation, but some services have different fees.
Okay, awesome. And then do you work with any families, or do you have any advice if people are just thinking about going back to school?
Going back to school, it's usually a little different in that, you're going to be looking at the schools typically that are closer to home as opposed to, further away. You're not necessarily thinking about, room and board at that point. But again, depending on what the career goals are, I'd examine all the different options and all the different costs, associated with those options to see what makes the most sense.
That makes sense for sure. For sure.
Great information, Vicki. I can't stress enough how important this decision is for children and for their families. It's got a huge financial impact. And one thing we did, like with Maggie, she went to junior college for 2 years because she just got her basic fundamental, what everybody needs, out of the way at a less expensive cost, and then went to a private school for the last 2 years.
What I've seen here about that, and you can tell me if your experience was totally different. I mean, it is a great option. However, what I've seen happen a few times is that the students will do that. They'll go to a local community college for 2 years and then want to transfer all their credits to where they're going. And then all of a sudden they're on a 5-year plan as opposed to a 4-year plan. So then for those students, they were adding another year of tuition to it.
Right.
So that was the only downside that I saw. Ideally, families are going to be able to keep it to a 4-year plan as opposed to a 5 or 6-year plan to help reduce, tuition and whatnot.
Definitely, yeah. I kind of knew what I wanted to do. So since it was in Illinois, both schools were in Illinois, it kind of had that partnership. But there always is that little bit of, oh, well, this math class isn't the math class that we have, and different things like that. But there are times when I went in there and I was like, no, this is not what I was told. I am not paying for this. I took a specific class for this. I tested out of this, So I definitely also advise people to speak up if they don't think that class is, the biggest thing I think I learned in school is that you are also the customer and they need to make the customer happy. Which, not saying I was always ecstatic, but there are times where I had to go and tell them, like, this is not what I was told 6 months ago, and I'm not going to take an additional math class because you changed your process halfway through.
Well, the one thing you're bringing up is, and everybody going to college needs to learn this, you need to be your own best self-advocate.
And so it's just saving money not only when you get started, but throughout. Because you do pay for class, like per hour. And so that adds up. And I'm like, I'm not taking the extra course. I'm not staying around another quarter. Like, this isn't happening. I'm out of here.
Yeah, and yeah, exactly. You have to be your own self-advocate. You have to know what the investment is. I'll never forget one time Maggie said to me, I have to go to class because if I don't go to class, that's costing me $800 or something like that. You know,
it was 10 weeks and each class was 3 hours long. I was like, if I don't go, that's $800 a class. Like,
wow,
that lights a fire under my butt to get to class. Yeah, I know that I have to pay for it. So I was like, well, not only am I like behind by 3 hours, but it's a lot of money I'm wasting just to go to the beach.
Definitely.
Yeah, so it is. I mean, it's a very it's an investment, and you have to take it seriously, and it's expensive. And you know, there are different ways. And I will say, you know, there's a lot of peer pressure about where you go to college that can come into play, which is also a difficult navigation. But I think, like you said, Vicki, you really need to focus on the family, the child, the expenses, and make a very logical and a good decision based on all those factors, and not the peer pressure of what's happening outside your family. And really make sure it's the best decision. And yeah, I mean, if you're not quite sure what you want to be when you grow up, I mean, there are places that you can just get started and navigate a little bit, like a junior college, or and not everybody's prepped to go away for a year or ready. So maybe they take a gap year and do something else. But there's lots of options. But when you do make that investment, it's great to have a Vicki Vollweiler by your side, so that you know that you have examined all the different opportunities and ways to save on this very expensive venture. Yeah,
Definitely.
so very nice. Yeah, no, I think it's awesome. It's because it's hard to navigate, and there's expenses for, I mean, it's like, here you go. I mean, from the minute you decide we're going to go to college, like Maggie said, applications, testing, tutoring, all of that jazz, it's a money funnel. So you have to make sure that you are managing that correctly.
Right. I mean, you know, and especially with our kids, you know, a lot of them don't even have a clue what they want to major in yet. You know, they could switch majors 3 times undergrad, you know, and, you know, families may want to take that into account if the kids are undecided, and, you know, where should they go so they have the biggest breadth of opportunities to find their future career path.
Right.
There's just lots of important things to consider.
Yeah.
You know, you were saying earlier about peer pressure. There have been families that have come to me and they say, you know, I'm kind of paraphrasing, but they only want to send their child, or the child only wants to go to a rah-rah school. Well, sorry, the rah-rah schools are likely not to offer you any money. So,
and
our community college was called, the abbreviation was CLC. So in high school, it was a joke that it was called the College of Last Chance, which doesn't entice anyone to go to community college because you think you had no other option, but really it could be the best financially sound option. And, you know, you get the most bang for your buck, and then you don't come out broke.
Right.
But
and you got a scholarship coming out of there.
Yeah. Shout out. But but it's still, I mean, it's amazing. Yeah, you can't give in to peer pressure, and it's hard because that's the age where, I mean, you want to, and you want to go party like the college movies have you do. But you're right, the rah-rah schools won't give you a ton of money unless you're the big QB or something.
Yeah. Yeah. So
yeah. The key is to be flexible. You know, the more flexible you are, the more money you can find.
It's awesome. Well, thank you so much, Vicki. We really appreciate all this advice. You can always reach out to Vicki at collegefinancialprep@gmail.com or her website, collegefinancialprep.com. She's also one of our Purse Strings approved providers, so she is on our Purse Strings website as well. So thank you so much.
And there's a new Facebook group. So please join facebook.com/groups/preparing4college.
Preparing for college. There you go. Awesome. Well, thank you
Lots
so
of good
much,
information
Vicki.
there too.
Good to know.
We'll see everyone here again next week. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Vicki.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.